Hi everyone, welcome back to the Studio Katia YouTube channel. It's Erica with you today, and today we're going to color some Happy Tulips. Yes, we're in fact actually going to make this card. And something that I've been putting off for quite a while. I didn't want to be in like one of those jumping on the bandwagons and then realize that, oh, that was wasted money, is the Karin Markers. So we're going to talk about the Karin Markers a little bit in today's video, because I used to have, or I still have them actually on that card somewhere, the Sig markers. And I have noticed that whilst they are really fun to play with and the color is fantastic and they blend really well and I really like the results I get from them, the colors fade. So that's a big wah-wah. And after, I don't know how long the Karin Markers have been out actually, but they've been around for a while anyway. And people have been saying that they are color fast, and it actually says so on the box itself. So I thought, let's dive in. And I did. And so far, they do not disappoint. Oh no. Look at that color. Like, look how vivid that is. Cool, huh? So I'm going to show you how I got this result and which markers I used and what I've done, you know, with the rest of the card. And yes, this is another meeting of Overblingers and Proud. Name change took effect last week. So yes, I have added quite a lot of sparkles, but you know, can you blame me? No, I don't think you can. So no, we are going to get making and coloring, and I will talk you through the whole process. So some of the bits will be shown in a little bit sped up, but just like a little bit so that you can still kind of see how I'm working. And then the rest is going to be a little bit of a time lapse so that we actually get through it. And you're not going to be sitting here all day whilst, you know, I'm stroking up and down with the markers and blending a little bit here and blending a little bit there. So hopefully you'll get the gist. And if you don't, rewatch it. And I can also make another video if there's interest, of course. And if there is, make sure you comment down below and let me know if you want to see more in real time coloring and tips and tricks and things like that I used when I color. So with that, we're gonna get making. The first thing we're going to do, because the Karin markers are watercolor markers, we are going to use an anti-static tool on some watercolor paper. This one I do believe is Canton XL. So I'm going to go over it with my anti-static tool, and then we're going to pop this into the Misty. And the reason I'm using a Misty is so that I can stamp with my embossing ink twice to make sure that I get a really good coverage, because I want to make sure that I get all those fine details. And then what we're going to do is, because you can see that the paper is kind of sticking out of the Misty a little bit, is that I want to get two on the same paper. So we're going to angle it a little bit and then make sure that our magnets are in place, and then we're going to dab a lot of embossing ink on this. And then before we close the lid, I always try to make sure that I push the paper back into the corner so that it's all in the same place, because even though I use the magnet, sometimes I've noticed that it can actually stick and you know, move a little bit. So after I've done two stamps on one side, I'm just swapping the paper over, and we're going to do two stamps on this side as well. And I'm just using my fingers to make sure that I'm pressing down all over the stamped image to really get that ink on there. And then we are going to pop this out and pop it onto a piece of paper, and then we're gonna spread very generously our white embossing powder. This one is the super fine to make sure that I get really nice coverage and details. And then with our preheated heat gun, we are going to quickly melt this, and then we are going to get coloring. But just like a quick note on heat embossing, is just, oh, I love it. Heat embossing is a bit of magic, isn't it? So here I've got my Karin markers. The ones that I picked out, I've actually already picked out, but then I thought I'll just show you close up which ones I've gone for. So I've gone for, my greens are apple and sulfur yellow, which is going to be kind of like my spring green, and then also a lime green. So I'm using 3 for the greens, and for the flowers I'm going to be using magenta, amber, and then it is pale orange, and also canary. So we're going to start with the actual tulips themselves, And I'm just going to put this away to make sure that I got space. And then we're going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see kind of my my process. And I do have a little acrylic block there, so I'm going to be rubbing off some of the excess on that. And also, if I need to pick up a little bit of color with a paler color, then I don't have to mess around so much. So I've gone in with the magenta first, right at the bottom of the petals, to kind of, because that's where, you know, the most of the color is going to be. That's where most of the contrast is going to be. And then I've gone in with the amber on top and then the pale orange. And now we're going to go with the canary. So this is the lightest color. So I have, with the two darkest colors, I've gone sort of over each other. And then with the paler one, I've actually started from the top to kind of not get so much color contamination. And then we're going to blend this in a little bit. And I did over blend this one a little bit, so I did decide to go in after and add a little bit more color. So for the other two flowers, we are, this is actually a little bit more sped up, but you can see how the colors work together and how they blend. And it's just given the most incredible like color, almost like explosion. Here I am going in with the extra color. So you can kind of see that, you know, just because you go in one time and you're not happy with the color, you just go in, add a little bit more here and there. Obviously it is easier if you just want to add darker colors. If you want to take some away, you might need to wet a paintbrush and wet that color and then pick it up with a kitchen towel or something like that. So for our leaves, what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much do the same thing here. So we're going to go in with our apple, which is our darkest first. And then we're going to add this in where basically I would kind of picture it kind of being, you know, again, like the contrast and shadows, because some of the leaves are bended. So we're going to add this in all of the kind of like nooks and crannies. And then we're going to go in with our lime green and our sulfur yellow to add in those highlights, kind of like you picture the sun is hitting the leaves and, you know, you get that, you know, the leaves come to life sort of thing. So again, I'm just blending, but try not to blend them out too much because you're still going to want that darker color to have, you know, the definition basically of the leaves. But I did notice something which I wasn't aware of before I got to this stage, is that when I went in with my darker color later on to just kind of add in a little bit more contrast, it really kind of just piled on. So rather than blending out, it kind of added another layer, which I thought was very, very good. So as I said, these markers are pretty new to me, so I still haven't explored exactly like fully everything that you can do with these. So I'm sure there are lots of people that will have way better tutorials than I do. But I just wanted to show you how I have colored these flowers, because I've really, really enjoyed coloring with these markers. They are so easy to use and the colors blend really, really well. I did get a little bit of pilling on this, so I wonder if maybe I didn't use the right kind of paper, because, you know, generally paper is so important when it comes to getting good results. But here I skipped ahead a little bit and I colored in the second lot of flowers as well in pretty much the same colors. And I will be using the die cut to cut these out, but I did realize that, I hadn't let the colors dry, so I'm skipping ahead and making my background. So I'm using a stencil and I'm going to just be ink blending a little bit of squeezed lemonade and some twisted citron to make a kind of a spring greeny yellow background. This stencil, something with bubbles. I really should have checked this before, but I will link it down below in the description box. And this is one of my favorite stencils from Studio Katia. I've had this for years, and there's something about bubbles and circles. It just works really, really well on all sorts of backgrounds. So I went in quite heavy with the twisted citron on top to kind of really bring in that sort of spring green, you know, like leaves coming through, and they're still a little bit pale because they haven't had enough sun and this and that. So I try to keep the yellow on one side and the twisted citron on like the opposite side, just to kind of have a little bit of color difference as well. And then on this, although we're getting to the best part, which is the peeling of the stencil. Ooh, I love that part. It's so fun, right? So this I thought was really good as it was, but I couldn't leave it like that. No. So I decided to add some gold splatter, and I have this box, which is what I call my splatter box, because I don't want, the splatter to go everywhere, and it really does go everywhere. So I went up at one of my gold watercolors, and I'm just splattering away. I'm also an over splatterer. I probably use a little bit too much than is needed, but it just, I don't know, it's such a simple touch, but it really works so well. So with the die cut, what I decided to do as well is I'm taping this in place with a little bit of washi tape to make sure that it doesn't move, because I've really enjoyed how the coloring came out, so I didn't want to risk the die cut slipping and maybe chopping one of the tulip heads off as it's going through my die cutting machine. So I decided to use that extra sort of little bit of safety just to make sure I get a really good perfect cut. And so with these two cut off, it is time to kind of layer everything up. And I decided to place the tulips so that one is slightly higher than the other, but the base of the one that's behind is kind of covered a little bit, so you can't really see that they are not the same height. And then I stamped up this birthday wishes sentiment on a strip of white cardstock, but I forgot to film that part. But it really was just super simple, tiny little strip of cardstock, and you can see it's kind of bended over the flowers as well. So I didn't want it to go all the way to the end, because I was kind of toying with the idea of maybe adding a frame around this, but then I decided not to. So now it's kind of like, okay, well, you committed, so let's just leave it as it is. But then, of course, got my satin gold pearls out and the embellishment wand, and yeah, I over embellished, but you know what? I really just really love, in case that wasn't super obvious, all the fun embellishments and things that you can find in the Studio Katia shop. There's just something for everything, and you can color coordinate, you can mix and match, and it is like the icing on the cake, isn't it? So with the help of the embellishment wand and a little bit of liquid glue, I glued all of these down. All of them. It's like a dozen on there, I think. And with that, the card is done. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and see you soon again.